Once you start to see that resin sort of bubble up out of the rosewood, you know you've heated it right through to the glue line. So the jig is in place and all of the fasteners have been pre-tensioned. And what I mean by that is these 4 hex fasteners have been tensioned, and underneath we have a 3/8 inch thick mid-density foam pad that conforms to the convex shape of the back. So you're supporting the back so that when you load this jig, there's no danger of cracking the back or the top. Now on the top, these vinyl and foam pads, I ship those out when we send out the jig, and they just slip into place and they seal the top of the guitar so that you don't get any blushing from the steam. I have my trusty cappuccino maker primed and ready to go. So there's a 5/16 inch fastener with a rubber tip that is pushing into the tip of the heel, applying that upward pressure as we steam. So let's get started. Here we go, showtime, because what we want is not water, we want steam. Pure steam. Here we go. So this is the Martin that needed a neck reset. You can see that the guy had sawn into the saddle to try and lower the strings as much as he could, but this is long overdue for a neck reset. Now, so I'm going to have to skim that, and this is the bridge slotting jig for the Bosch Colt router that I've been sending out, and this is the plate that comes with that jig. So it is essentially a CNC'd version of the Bosch Colt router base. So Alright, so now that we're done, this is how quickly it comes off. We don't leave a single scratch or mark, no excessive force. This was the initial reason I came up with this spherical radius sander. Watch how fast I clean up the foot of the bridge. What happened with this bridge was the original owner, who was a body man and actually sprayed lacquer most of his life, he actually sprayed over top of the finish, which is, everybody knows, is a big no-no. It wasn't quite as bad as that other D18 where the guy shellacked the finish with a brush. And when he sprayed the lacquer, there was a bit of seepage on the back side of the bridge. And you know, there's going to be, you can see there's all kinds of marks all over this guitar. But what we're after is 100% structural stability. The contact from the underside of the bridge to the top. And now that I've slotted that, we've got complete control over the intonation as well. I like to have a little bit of movement on that to line it up. And yeah, I'm liking that. So follow up with our wet cloth. It's our dry cloth. Good, we can set that one aside now. It was this whole back portion of the bridge. There was a little bit of gappage. But that came off about as clean as you could possibly expect. Okay, we'll get these clamps off and get that Laravel bridge glued up. Let that sit overnight. Yeah, you get jobs this size. Kind of tend to work on them bit by bit. And in this case, I'm kind of working on them in tandem. 3 neck resets, 3 bridge reglues, a 1970 D18, this is a 1952 00018, and a 1974 Laravel. Whew, very early Laravel. Yeah, looking good. Okay, we're just going to skim off the bottom of that bridge. This is bridge number 3 today. Now I have some very, very old wooden bridge pins that are oversized, and I kind of push those into place, and they give me something to hang on to. I'm also looking at the profile. I can see that that wing is a little bit thinner than this one, so I'm going to concentrate more on that base side and even it up. The other thing I do that I find this sander very handy for is when the bridge, everybody knows that the strings want to sort of pull the top and the bridge up. Well, with this sander, you can actually lean on the back side and actually tilt the bridge a little bit to sort of gain back all that real estate from string pull for half a century or whatever. Because the surface is spherical, it's a ball, it really doesn't matter where you set the thing. Now I'm going to favor that corner. Almost there. You can see we still haven't touched here, haven't touched there, so I'm kind of leaning towards that front. Just about there. And that's it. Now I am going to do what I said a second ago, and I'm going to actually favor this back edge. By doing that, by tilting back like that, you actually increase the tension at the focal tip on the saddle. It just puts a little bit more tension where it should be. We're done, we're ready to glue. Well, we've done our dry run, we know we're good, so this is definitely another one of those jobs that's kind of 99% preparation and 1% perspiration. So of course the idea, as always, is to cover your tracks so that you get this on perfectly. It should be as close to undetectable as possible. Okay, so you can see that I have the ability to shift the bridge ever so slightly to line up. Yeah, that's where we want it. So we've already done our dry run. Everything is lined up and ready to go. The underside of this little block here is actually concave. So it's kind of 4 points of contact that push that wing down good and tight. Same with this, so you can see that's concave. That's what you want. This is also slightly concave, just so that it grips the crown of the bridge. These are scoop up sticks. A few of these ready to go. Got our wet cloth again. Follow that up with a dry cloth. Yeah, that's a decent day's work. 3 bridges off, 3 bridges radius, 3 bridges reglued. So we're continuing along with the triple neck reset video, and I have built up the bone on this cantilevered saddle blank with some Brazilian rosewood. This is for the 00018 to match the Brazilian rosewood in the bridge, and we're just going to thin that out on the sander. Get a nice press fit on that. Let's go try that. I've got a very close to press fit. The rest will be just brushed by hand. But I'm getting a tracer of the bridge radius so that the underside of this overhang matches that perfectly. This front lip of the bridge on a through route is much more likely to break. We really have to proceed with caution here. Okay, so I have created that concave radius, and we're going to make a convex radius gauge to match. So now we have the gauge we're going to use at the radius disc sander to create that radius to get intimate contact with the crown. Okay, I'm happy with that. The rest we'll do by hand. So that's our next move, to radius the crown to match the fingerboard. So as you can see, there's way more geometry going on with this type of through route bridge than a regular one. This is the next arc that we're going to follow. Now I have left the height of the saddle a little too high. I've left the approximate values, string to string, a little bit more than we need so they can be cut back. We still have to cut back these little ramps on the outside. So we're going to do this arc next. Once again, back to the sander. I need to roll off that back edge. So this is what we ended up with for this 52 00018 of Willys. So I've left everything a little bit higher and left more than we need for the compensation. So when we get on the home run, we've got lots of material to work with. And this is Bill's 1970 D18. Same deal. We're doing these guitars in tandem. Now this one are very close to having that neck angle perfect. I have my pilot frets in. I've already fretted that top end of the fingerboard off of the guitar with the backer block so that we don't shock that soundboard. And now I'm back to Willys 000. Same deal. Get that neck set to the perfect angle. Well, since we are doing these two Martin neck resets in tandem, I thought this would make a great sort of tutorial. On this D18, I've pretty well got the final neck set where I want it. And here we have Willys Martin 00018, and we're doing the neck reset on that. So I thought I would bring you in right at the very beginning and kind of take a minute to explain resetting a dovetail, how it works. It's pretty safe to start with a millimeter at this tip. So you want to take a millimeter off. Now you got to remember, as you approach the underside of the fingerboard, you're not taking anything off at all. So these cuts along the inside cheeks of the heel are tapered. So you go from 1 millimeter here to 0. So take a minute to explain this. When you're resetting a dovetail, you're really taking the largest portion off the tip, and this allows you to sort of tilt the neck back. Now I do use a die grinder with a little disc on it, and I know it looks really easy when you see me do this, but it's okay to take your time and do this by hand. I'm just explaining my method. I take 1 millimeter off this end. That's pretty safe. This obviously just takes a couple of seconds to do this, but you want to be very comfortable with the die grinder before you try this yourself. And like I said, there's no shame in doing this all by hand. It'll take you quite a bit longer. And most of the fitting I do myself is done by hand, but I get a jump start on it by doing this. And that's it for the die grinder. So I've marked the cheek of the heel with this pencil line all around its perimeter. This portion of the cheek on the inside, you can see this is the original work from Martin. This area here needs to be a void. So when I switch over to the sandpaper, the only material that I'm taking off is off of this ledge. When you tuck the sandpaper up to here and then you pull, well, this doesn't get much of a hit. This gets most of the hit. The sanding is distributed along the length of that line. And this helps the job move along pretty quickly. So I make that void with the conical cutter and the Dremel tool. And now we're ready for the sandpaper trick that everybody seems to know about. So I have a bunch of strips of 120 sandpaper already cut up. You want to try and get in the habit of doing 1 stroke per side, or you could do 3 strokes per side too, but you just want to make sure that you get equal strokes on each side so that the neck doesn't go off its proper trajectory. Anyone who's done this knows there's no real shortcuts here. You just gotta move it a little bit more, put it back on, check it. We got pretty close with that die grinder actually, right out of the gate, although this portion here wasn't touched, so that's what we're kind of really concentrating on right now. So when you think about it, and just pull this out for a second, what we've done is we've moved that male dovetail in to the female portion of the dovetail, so that tip now is loose. So when we go to shim it, we only shim from here to the tip. This we're hardly altering at all. I'm looking at that neck angle and you can see, we've made a difference already. sometimes the part that you can't see is kind of hung up, so I'm going in with a thinner strip and just trying to get that to lie good and tight all the way across. Yeah, that looks better. It's looking good. I'm going to a couple of strokes on this side, make sure we're not going off course here. Looking good. Okay, let's check that. Well, you'll notice that I've got the 3rd fret in and I've got the 10th fret in. Those 2 frets are pilot frets, and they let me know how close the trajectory is to where we want it. When I rest that straight edge on the 3rd and the 10th fret and I run it up to the bridge, see that? We're just about kissing the top of the bridge. So these frets that I have in here are 85-45, so they're 85 thou wide and 45 thou high. Now I can see from the footprint of the original frets that the original frets are quite a bit wider, surprisingly, because 85-45, you know, pretty close to a standard kind of Martin fret. So I've got some 51-100, so that's going to bring this up just a little bit more. And it will completely cover the footprint, the original footprint. Now we have some fingerboard correction to do, but all in all, this angle is pretty darn close right out of the gate. Now you have heard me mention many times before in other videos, there's 6 different planes on this neck to body angle that you need to check. The plane that we just checked was this one, so it's got to be right this way, it's got to be right this way. What we did was we pulled the neck off and we tilted it back, obviously I'm exaggerating, so that we had control over the action and the intonation. The next 2 angles, it's got to be right this way and it's got to be right this way. Each time I pull that slip of sandpaper through either side on the cheeks, that alters the angle this way and this way. Now lastly, it has to be right this way and this way. Now this being the original hand-cut Martin Dovetail, when we put those shims on the tip of the male Dovetail, we want to make sure that they're exactly the same thickness, and that'll keep us on track as far as this goes and this goes. So there's still quite a bit more work to do, and I will spread that out over the next few days. Hope you're having a great weekend.